Hey gang, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling, and I really appreciate you guys making a little time out of your day to watch the video. I was definitely always grateful for that, and it's a beautiful morning here in Southwest Missouri, late summer, early fall. You can feel fall starting to get in the air, which I do not like because I know it's around the corner. It's going to be getting freaking cold, and I would prefer, being in shorts and a t-shirt, all year long. So that's just enjoying this warm weather while we still have a little bit. But anyway, guys, today we are going to talk about tournament ethics and basically the unwritten rules of tournament fishing. I don't care if you're fishing a club tournament or small tournaments or big tournaments or whatever. There are some rules and there are some ethics that you need to follow that are not written down. Some of them are within the tournament rules, but more importantly, it's about doing the right thing on the water, being a decent person, and having some integrity when you're fishing. So I'm going to go over what that is. Before we get started, guys, just a couple quick reminders. Please swing by fishthemoment.com and check out our virtual lessons and our fall lake map breakdowns. I'll put the link in the description of this video. You guys can check them out. These are the breakdowns I build for Fish the Moment that gives you 40 good GPS waypoints, tips and advice on how to fish them, download straight for your electronics. Great places to build a foundation if you don't know much about a lake or you want to learn more about it. So information in the description here. Okay guys, tournament fishing. I've been tournament fishing since I fished my first tournament in 1978. So you can add that up. It's been a long time of tournament fishing. And one of the things that I've always tried to do, there's been two things that I've tried to do in my tournament career, is do the right thing on the water as far as how I treat other anglers in the tournament and be safe, and just try to be ethical as far as when you're talking about tournament, the tournament format, about how to interact with other tournament anglers on the water. So I'm going to give you guys some tips and advice from my perspective that will not only allow you to gain more respect amongst your peers, but it's just the right thing to do. So what I sort of want to do is I want to start out with all the potential conflicts from before tournament starts and then towards after it's even over there. So the first thing it has to do before you can get on the water, it has to do with information. Now, a lot of people before a tournament, some guys will share information amongst each others, usually friends. And one of the things about that, guys, when you're sharing information, is you have to form trust with another person. So if somebody tells you something or gives you some information, make sure that you don't share it with other people unless the person told you that that's okay. That's really important there too. And then the next thing is, if somebody tells you some specific pieces of information, make sure that you don't use it against that person. So say for example, if you're fishing, if your buddy tells you, man, I've been catching a ton of fish on boat docks and I'm fishing, say he goes, I'll show you where I'm fishing here, and then you can duplicate the pattern or whatever. Say he shows you a row of boat docks in a creek. Don't show up on that row of boat docks in the creek. So don't step on his toes, biting the hand that feeds you with that, because then again you will create conflict, you'll erode trust, and that doesn't ever go good for anyone out there. So thing about that is, if you're sharing information, be transparent and be honest with each other. It's like, if you have some information excuse me, if you have some information to share with somebody else, also make sure when you share that information that you're not going to put that other person in the position of handicapping them. So say for example, let's go back to the boat dock deal. Say you're fishing a lake that only has maybe two big marina docks on it, okay? And you're telling your buddy, it's like, man, I'm ripping the fish on this pattern. I'm just catching so many fish on it. And you say, I'm fishing marina docks. And obviously there's only two marina docks on the lake. So it's like, if you're telling somebody like that, you can't tell somebody something like that if you're going to keep them from fishing that area, because that person may have wanted to go fish marina docks, but now since you told him, and there's only two marina docks on the whole lake, he can't really fish it unless he steps on your toes. So point of the matter is, guys, to be very careful when you're sharing information, to be very clear and transparent and concise with the person you're sharing it with. The next thing is the tournament morning. When you take out for a tournament, guys, Don't be one of those goobers out there that freaking thinks that they got to get to their spot first. And we've all seen it. It's like you'll be in a 150 or 200 boat tournament, and usually it's all crazy. But if you're boat 100, there's going to be boat wakes that's all choppy and crazy everywhere, and there's always some freaking idiot that tries to pass everybody, balls to the wall, and they're like this with their boat, and their partner's like freaking out, hanging on for dear life. Don't be one of those guys. Take your time, trim your motor down, slowly pick your way through the waves until you get out into open water where you're not around anybody, and then you can open it up. It's not going to kill you to back off it for a little bit while you're taken out from the takeoff. And also, when you get out there, don't be one of those guys that thinks you're going to save 2 seconds by cutting between somebody turning a point. Say if there's a boat, say here's the point right here, and there's a boat coming around this point. Don't be that boat that comes between the boat and the point. Go the other way direction. You're setting yourself up for tragedy there. Something could happen. The other guy couldn't see you. There might be a boat coming from the opposite direction towards you. Just tap down the testosterone, back off the throttle, and just stop doing that, because it's just stupid if you guys drive like that taken out from the takeoff. The next thing is when you get out on your areas out there. Now this is the sort of the meat of the video here, what I want to talk about. Ethics and unwritten rules of tournament fishing apply to this super heavily. I'm going to give you guys a couple of different examples. Say you're working down a shoreline. Say for example, you pull up on a stretch of rocky bank, and maybe say 100 yards in front of you there's like a main lake point, and you're working towards that main lake point, right, on this straight stretch of bank. If you run down the lake and you see some angler that's fishing down a bank like that, and obviously he stopped maybe 50 to 100 yards short, and he's gonna hit that main lake point, you know he's going to. If you see somebody working down a stretch of bank there, don't ever pull up in front of them and start fishing. I'm talking, the distance there is relative to the situation that you're in, but the main thing about it is don't pull up in front of somebody and start fishing when you know that they're going to fish down that stretch. That's just sort of a dick move, and it happens all the time. If you want to fish a stretch of bank, here's how you do it. Say for example, you really want to fish that stretch of bank, right? If you want to fish that stretch of bank, don't pull up in front of that dude. There's two things you can do. Number one is go get behind him and start working towards him. So say for example, if the boat's working this way, don't ever pull up in front of the boat. Pull in behind him, a good distance behind him, and start working behind him. That way you're giving him the courtesy of working that bank first. The second thing is slowly idle up to him and say, hey man, do you mind if I start on the other end and work up towards you like that? At least offer him that courtesy out there. Don't just be one of those guys that pulls up there and start doing that. Another thing, if you pull in behind him, if he's fishing at a snail's pace, don't try to pass him with your trolling motor and get in front of him. That's another dick move to make. Main thing is put yourself in the other angler's position as far as how you would not want to be treated as well there. And it's, like I said, every situation with that is unique and different. So you're going to have to handle every situation different. But two things to remember there. If you know somebody's working up and trying to get to a certain place, don't pull up in front of them, cut them off, or have a talk with them. Same thing applies to specific spots. Now, say there's a creek channel intersection on Kentucky Lake where everybody fishes out there. Community hole. Community holes are a little bit different. And this is why I hate post-spawn community fishing holes, because it always winds up bad for everybody. But if you pull up to a community hole and there's a boat or so on it, again, make sure, go up to those people and say, hey guys, this is where I found my fish. Can I slip in here right there? Because most of the time, even though they may not really want you in there, they're going to allow you to be in there, because if the tournament's the next day, you're going to be an earlier draw out and you're going to be there first. So you sort of have to work it out amongst certain situations like that. Another thing with that is don't be one of those bent rod fishermen. I see this quite a bit where, guys, this happens a lot like on grass bed lakes. If you're fishing out on grass beds, you'll see some guys fighting a fish, and then all of a sudden you see a boat sort of making this veer off the direction, and they pull into that area. It's called the bent rod pattern. And also the same thing, guys, if you're fishing out offshore in offshore grass beds, and I've talked about this in a couple of videos before, don't go out around somebody in the middle of the lake just because you see somebody in the middle of the lake. If you don't know what's out there, and if you can't look at your mapping system and say, well, there's a flat there, so there's probably some grass, or there's a drop there, don't go investigating some area just because you see another boat over there. That's completely not cool as well. So that's just a few example, guys, what I'm talking about as far as the unwritten rules of tournament fishing. There's a lot more. I mean, that's just some of the basic ones that you really need to remember. And the main thing is just if you go out there and you treat people the same way you would want to be treated, and you're honest and transparent with people out there, most of the time you're going to avoid any confrontation that you're going to have out there. But the problems that usually occur is usually when somebody encroaches too close on another angler without asking that angler. There's very few situations, unless there are some situations, but there's very few situations is if you approach somebody with respect and kindness, that they won't let you in there, even though they may not want to. That's just part of tournament fishing, man. So anyway, hope it helps you guys out, and we'll talk later. See you guys.